Kansas State's edge rushers are poised for a breakout season. With new faces and returning talent, they're ready to dominate the Big 12.
You are Locked On Kansas State, your daily podcast on the Kansas State Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Christian Rauh, and thank you so much for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen every single day. Welcome back to my everydayers. We are getting into the weekend, but we're going to continue on our talk with the spring practices and college football. It's a great feeling to be able to talk college football in April. It's always a great feeling to talk college football, really, in general. And we are going to dive in that today. Today, we're going to dive into continuing on with what we heard from some of the press conference from some of the players, some of the defensive edge rushers, and why I believe, especially from what we've heard, kind of helped solidify that we are in for a great time as a Kansas State Wildcats fan to watch some really good defense in 2025. We'll also break down what some offensive linemen said. We'll talk about that. Talk about some standout transfers that we believe are going to make a next step forward. And then we'll wrap this all up with something that I found on the internet that is tracking multiple Kansas State players heading towards the NFL draft and where they believe they are ranked compared to all of the other players inside the NFL. And it goes pretty deep. We'll dive into that and all right here. If you haven't already, click subscribe. We are gaining so much traction. If you can see that number, if you're listening on YouTube and you can see that number below, we are so close to 800 subscribers. And I thank you so much for coming back every single day and joining me for this conversation. We talked Van Malone yesterday, talking about just the momentum and building the culture and all that great stuff. It was an awesome conversation. So if you want to dig into that, what I thought about that portion, check out yesterday's episode. But today I wanted to dive into the players, and this was something that also happened on Wednesday as well, but we ran out of time during the show, and I figured, well, let's make it a show. Let's continue on. Let's dive into Friday here and get us in good feels heading into the weekend. And if you're watching the Masters, you already have good feels because there's been some great golf happening there. And if you're feeling great about maybe Monday night when the WNBA draft is about to happen after the weekend, when Serena Sandell will be drafted, should be in the first round. I thank you, by the way, for answering the community poll on YouTube. We got a lot of votes on there, and most of them think that Sandell will finish in the first or draft in the first or second round on Monday night. So I'm just going to add to the vibes. That's what I feel like I'm going to do here. And I got a lot of help from that player's presser, from a couple defensive players, and it ended up with an offensive lineman as well. Now, Dylan Edwards also did speak to the media. We're going to save that conversation for another day. I want to focus really on the defensive edge side, because after hearing two of these defensive ends, and we'll talk about Tobi, Osunsanmi, and Chiddi, Obiazor. I hope I say these names right. I'm terrible with names. I'm sure if you've been listening for a long time, you know that I am so bad with names. I got the media guide out, so I'm trying my best here. But listening to them talk, the biggest thing that I got from it was that, once again, it's reiterating everything we've heard from Coach Kleiman. We've heard from Avery Johnson last week. We heard from Coach Malone. And now hearing from these players, they love the traction that they've gained from this workout program heading in the spring. It sounds like what Coach True has installed in this program over the last couple of weeks has been a huge success. And not just the numbers that we're hearing of 700 pounds of muscle gained, size and strength, and that portion, not the physical side, although that's great. And don't get me wrong, that is a huge aspect to this. But it sounds like it's a lot more. It talks about, it seems like it's a big confidence factor that's moving motivation even more. And if you want to just tie it all in together, as we're kind of doing with this Vibe Friday here, it helps the momentum, right? And we're right back to that buzzword. And I feel like that's the official buzzword of Locked On Kansas State right now, at least with this football team. But it's hard not to. It's hard not to have this feeling that this team is just on a great trajectory back into this window of being in not only Big 12 contention, but in the college football playoffs once this season is said and done. Once you get there, who knows what happens from there? It's just like in basketball. You always want to say, once you get to the dance, you never know what can happen. Cinderella can come to the dance. Didn't this year, but it could, right? You never know what can happen if you can get to that college football playoffs. And I think Kansas State has what it takes to get there. And we've heard from some of these players, and we heard from, I think it was Osunsanmi that said that his goal for the team is to make the college football playoffs this year. And the reason he said that, he said there's just too many athletes on this team. Too many dudes. Too many studs. Too many guys for it not to happen. And I've actually heard comments from you when I've put out shows talking about my belief, how I think this team can not only win the Big 12, but make it to the college football playoffs, make the Big 12 title game, because I think we're going to get at least 2 Big 12 teams in this playoff bracket. So I think you just got to make it to the Big 12 championship game personally. Winning obviously just seals the deal, but I think you just got to get there to make the college football playoffs this season. I think that some things are going to change. I don't think we're going to see so many SEC teams. I just don't think that's going to happen. And although there's so much parity in the Big 12, I think there's still a chance, and a really good chance, for you to stick out. And by missing teams like Arizona State and BYU, which we're going to dive into, by the way, in the coming weeks. We're going to start diving into the schedule, and we're going to start diving into some other teams that we don't have to face in the Big 12, because I think it's still important to pay attention to your entire conference and have a good knowledge. And I want to make sure that if I got that knowledge, I want to share it with you folks as well, because I think it's important to be the most informed Big 12 fan. The most informed Big 12 fans should be Kansas State Wildcat fans, in my opinion. But they talked about how it's just the momentum, how important it was. And for the record, we talked about the goals and how he wanted this team to go to the college football playoffs. He also wanted his position group, the edge rushers, and this is kind of where all this episode's stemming from right here. He wanted his edge rushers to lead the nation in sacks this next season. And you might be thinking, right off the bat, like, yes, absolutely, that sounds great. And you should. And there might be some of you also on the other side saying, okay, that might sound a little far-fetched. Maybe that's not possible. And I might tell you maybe to pump the brakes there. Because I went and dug into the numbers after hearing that. I wanted to see how close this team was actually to leading the country in sacks in 2024. Now, obviously, this isn't the same team that's going to be returning. Brennan Mott last year was amazing, had 11 sacks on the year. He was fantastic, led the team by a good amount, a good chunk. We're going to talk about Chiddi and Tobi in this episode, and they both finished tied for second with Desmond Purnell with 4. So you have some big shoes to fill on this defensive pass rush, but one extra year with Chiddi in the system, one extra year with Tobi in the system. We're going to talk about a transfer soon. We're going to talk about a returning player soon, and Cody Cephalbean. I think that type of rotation can get the job done. Now, you mentioned, how do you replace 11 sacks from Brennan Mott? Well, it won't be hard. It won't be easy. But you also asked that question for the past couple seasons. How are you going to replace defensive talent year after year? And quite frankly, I think they found a way to do it. So I think they can do it again. 11 sacks will be tough to complete. And even with that 11 sacks, you still have to make some type of ground. Kansas State finished 25th in the country last year. Not bad. It's actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And I know this team was very good defensively. I think there were some ups and downs for sure on this team. But normally when you think about the woes of this defense, when you're just looking back, if you're not digging into the film and you're just looking back as a whole on the season, you'd kind of think of the defensive woes being in the secondary, which is wild to think, especially knowing that you're going to have 2 players drafted from the secondary in just less than 2 weeks. But I would think that's a pretty fair assumption. And if I'm wrong, let me know in the comment description below. But when I'm thinking about the defense and if there was any type of woes, I think there were some issues in the secondary. Maybe just some misplays, whatever. Don't want to dive too much into it because just as mentioned yesterday, you can make it 9 out of 10 times, but that one time is the one you remember. I'm kind of just calling myself out right now by saying that exact thing. But Kansas State finished 25th in the nation last year in sacks with 35 sacks on the year. That was an average of 2.69 sacks per game. It's pretty great. If you're getting pretty close to 3 sacks per game, you can do that. I mean, that's awesome. That's fantastic. And for the record, it might be 25th in the nation. That was the second best in the Big 12. The best was the Colorado Buffaloes, which also surprised me. Because when you think the Colorado Buffaloes, you're not thinking amazing pass rush, at least not off the top of your head the last couple seasons. You're thinking flashy offense with Travis Hunter, with Shedeur Sanders, and terrible offensive line. So it kind of just blended into me that it would be terrible defensive play as well. No, they had 39 sacks on the year, just 4 more than Kansas State did, but that was good enough for 11th. Pretty crazy, right? So just that small amount, and for the record, that's a 3 sack average per game, 39 sacks, playing 13 games, assuming you go to a bowl game. So if you can get the 39 sacks, you're a fringe top 10 team in the country in sacks. You might not lead it, but you're right there. This Kansas State squad right now, as it sits, can absolutely hit 3 sacks per game. I think they can. I think with the pressure, I think with the increase of the safeties, I think bringing back some defensive tackles, and obviously this rotation of defensive ends, which is going to be absolutely nuts. And there should be no reason why there shouldn't be any that's not fresh heading out there. Because I think you have 4 studs, at least 4 studs. We're going to talk about 4 today, but we might hear some breakouts and some superstars pop up, maybe a sleeper, if you will, after spring and fall camp. And then there's also the spring window that could always bring in the surprise, right? Either way, I think it's absolutely possible. To get to number 1, though, might be a little bit of a challenge. Is it doable? Absolutely. Let's talk about that number and so much more next, right here on Locked On Kansas State. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back. Well, then waiting and wondering and worrying some more. Well, now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can get your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com, only available with the TurboTax Live Service app. Real-time updates only available in the iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. And welcome back to Locked On Kansas State, your daily Kansas State Wildcats podcast. We're diving in to college football talk here. Spring practice is in full bloom, if you will. And although there's only 10 practices on the slate, and we are getting close to the halfway mark already, if not already at the halfway mark, there's still a lot of really good momentum and good feelings towards this team. And we're really focusing on the defensive side today because there were 2 members of the defensive ends, the 2 edges of Tobi Osunsanmi and Chiddi Obiazor that had some discussions with the media on Wednesday. And I do think they're poised for a breakout season. You got to find a way to contain Brandon Mott. You got to find a way to fulfill what Brandon Mott did, not contain, and get those 11 sacks and then more, right? We mentioned how they averaged just under 3 sacks per game. That was good enough to 25 in the country, 35 sacks on the year. They were the 25th best team in the country in that category. To get up to a fringe top 10, to be the 11th best, to be the best in the Big 12, you just got to bump that number up just a little bit. Get to 3 per game and get to 39. That's where Colorado sat. They were the best in the Big 12. Now, to get to the very tippy top, it's going to take just 1 more sack per game. That might sound like a lot, and really it kind of is, because only 1 team in the entire country averaged 4 sacks per game. And for the record, I mean, there was really only 2 teams, because Boise State averaged 3.93, but because of the college football playoffs, they played an extra game. So I think you could probably put both of these 2 in the category. But the leader in team sacks this season based on average sacks per game, was Ole Miss. They had 52 sacks on the season. Now, they were technically third because Boise State had 55 with an extra game, and Ohio State had 53 with multiple extra games. Ohio State played 16, Boise State played 14. But at a 13-game level, which exactly what Kansas State played last year, Ole Miss had 52 sacks on the year, which is good enough for a smooth average of 4 sacks per game. So how do you get up from 2.69 sacks per game to 4 even? That's the biggest question. Oh, and by the way, while you're doing that, you got to find a way to replace 11 sacks from Brennan Mott. Well, we already mentioned that we think there's going to be a resurgence and a breakthrough from both Tobi and Chiddi. We think that's going to happen. They each had 4 sacks this past season. Who says that's not going to get better? I mean, to get to the very top, I think you have to make the assumption, and I think it's a fair assumption, that both Chiddi and Tobi have to reach double-digit sacks in 2025. I think that's fair. You also got Cody Stufflebean in the mix as well, coming back for his final season. He had 2 sacks last year. He's probably going to start, right? He started all the games last year for the first time in his career. Made his first career starts last year, right? But we'll see how much actually playing time he gets. Now, he played a good amount of stuff, but his pass rushing, according to PFF, wasn't as good as Tobi and Chiddi. Tobi actually is going to be the best pass rusher in the eyes of statistics and analytics, returning to the Kansas State team that had a decent amount of qualified considered pass rushes. Technically, according to PFF, Jack Fabris is actually the best pass rusher on the team, but he's a safety, and they're only accounting for 6 pass rushes on that. You look at the actual numbers, make some actual statistical sense. And Tobi had 214 pass rushes and seen as a pass rush grade of 71.6. That's definitely in the green if you're looking at some PFF stats, and that's a great number. So just knowing that he was already progressing, we were seeing some really good things from both him and Chiddi in the end of the season, especially in the Rape Bowl as well. There's some big plays in the Rape Bowl that those players made. I could see them making double-digit sacks. That wouldn't surprise me in the slightest. Can Stufflebean double his number? Can he get to 4? Can he get to 5? If so, I think that helps you out, right? That puts you at 25 just on those 3 players. I mean, we're still talking about a whole bunch of other players that have to do some things, right? But safeties step up and do things. Interior defensive linemen who you're bringing back, some stud seniors, they can step up and do things. Your linebackers, who we haven't even dug into linebackers since we've been this spring yet. You guys loved our episodes when we dived into them when the portal happened about the linebackers, because I think this linebacker group, we've talked about the secondary and the defensive end. We probably got to talk about the linebacking group next week, because that crew is going to be fun. It's going to be an absolute riot. Ralph Ortiz, Gabe Powers, and then the returning linebackers. Are you kidding me? It might be one of the best units in the country when it's all said and done. Super excited for that. We're going to have to dig into that for sure. Speaking of transfers, though, and I think this might be the X factor that we're looking for. Maybe not. We'll see. But redshirt freshman Jayshawn Ross comes over from Alabama, Kansas City, Missouri kid. He was redshirted last year. I think he only played 1 game, if I remember correctly. Had a couple snaps against Mercer, and then he got his red shirt. And he was hurt, had some injury concerns, so he did take care of his red shirt in his first season, then transferred over here to Manhattan. Big dude, 6'3", 222, according to his spring roster page on KStateSports.com. And he could be exciting. We heard from both Tobi and Chiddi that Ross was a stud. Like, they asked, who is one of the most exciting players you've seen so far? Who's a player that's impressed you? And Ross's name popped up. I love when we hear transfer names pop up, because we kind of have an idea of the players that have already been here. We've seen them play, with the exception of maybe they just didn't get enough playing time last year. And then if we hear a player name that needed to develop, that's exciting too. That might be even more exciting because they developed in the system. But when we hear a transfer player this early in the year, becoming a leadership trait, like we talked about Gunnar Maldonado yesterday, not last week. I don't know where that came from. And Jayshawn Ross now saying that players in his position group are impressing the heck out of him. Gotta love that. So can they make it to the number one team in sacks on the season? It's a stretch. Let's not sugarcoat it. That's going to be a tough battle to do. I mean, you're almost asking for 20 more sacks on a season. And you're almost asking for 2 more sacks per game. I think the realistic goal is to be the leader in the Big 12. And I think that's absolutely doable. 100%. You're only 4 sacks behind Colorado. Now, will Colorado be the same team next year? Who knows? We'll dive into that very soon. We do play Colorado. And even if they didn't, we're going to dive into and make sure we are covered, and we make sure we understand every single Big 12 team before week 0 in Dublin. Probably multiple times we'll talk about teams. We'll make sure you guys are covered. Make sure you guys are understanding everything. But 52 sacks seems a little high. So if I had to put a guess out there, if there was a odds bet from our buddies at FanDuel that put this up and said, who would lead the country in sacks? And I'm sure that's not a prop bet, but if there was, I don't think I would play that with Kansas State, because I think that's a tough one to do. But if they asked me who would be the leader in the Big 12, I'd play that baby all day. Double down, if you will, right? Because I do think that's a solid thing for them to accomplish in 2025. Lots of things to be excited about. There's no doubt about it. And this team just continues on that momentum slide, right? They just continue every single day. I get more excited about this football team, and I am looking forward now. And I know it's only going to happen in April. We'll see what happens down the rest of the months. But I'm looking forward to every Wednesday when we get another press conference, because it just gives you that much more insider knowledge about what this team is doing, how exciting we can be, and how this team is remembering where they started off at 7-1 and ended in, dare I say, disappointing fashion, although it was a win, a beautiful win, by the way, amazing comeback against Rutgers in the Rate Bowl. It's not the finish they wanted, and it's not the finish they're going to get in 2025. This team is a lot better, and I think, I don't think they're done yet. I think the portal next month is going to be huge for Kansas State. So strap in. And we're going to have all June, July, and August to just get ready. Might have to buy a new seatbelt on Amazon, because it's going to be wild, folks. It's going to be wild. Let's dig into this thing I found online. It's called The Beast. It includes more than 400 player profiles and talks about nearly 2,700 prospects inside for the NFL draft coming up in just a few weeks. We'll do that as we close out this show right here on Locked On Kansas State. Locked On Kansas State. I'm your host, Christian Rauh. Thank you so much. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. We are getting very close to 800 subscribers, and I appreciate every single one of you coming back and listening to the show, leaving comments, all that great stuff. It is a very fun time to sit here and have a conversation with you every single day of the week, talking about the Kansas State Wildcats. It is so fun. And seeing the subscriber just number grow, knowing that this community is getting bigger, it is just knowing that I'm succeeding here. And it's really nice. So I really appreciate that. So thank you so much for being a listener every single day right here on Locked On Kansas State. I want to dig into this thing that I found super impressive. And, I'm digging into NFL draft content for another show that I host called the 32 Blueprint. And it tracks, NFL stuff on the side. So if you like to hear my voice, or if you're not sick of it after listening to Locked On Kansas State 5 days a week, I encourage you to check out 32 Blueprint. But this version, it's called The Beast, and it's from The Athletic. And what I like about this, for the record, is it doesn't appear that you need to have a premium subscription for The Athletic to look at this. Now, I think you need one if you want to download it, which I think that makes sense. But it looks like there's either just like a light version, or you can get a pretty good amount of it for free just by checking out the links. And this version of what they call The Beast includes more than 400 player profiles and rankings for nearly 2,700 prospects. And to put that in perspective, 2,700 prospects, there's only 257 draft picks coming into the NFL draft on April 24th to 26th in Green Bay, Wisconsin. While we're diving into that today, the first thing I did was went position by position and then sorted it by school. I wanted to see how many Kansas State players were on that bad boy. So if you're thinking of doing the exact same thing, don't worry, I got you handled. Now, almost every single one of these players also have a profile and talks about their scouting stuff. So I encourage you to actually check this out if this is interesting to you. But there were 12 players, 11 that played for Kansas State last year, and then Will Howard, of course, the former Kansas State quarterback, and went to Ohio State, won the national championship. Still a Kansas State Wildcat. There's no doubt about that. For the record, I don't know if you saw it, but did you see the John Gruden quarterback camp thing with Will Howard last week? That was amazing. That was super cool. If you haven't checked that out, if you're okay with profanity, I recommend you check out the quarterback club with quarterback camp, with Will Howard and Barstool Sports and John Gruden. It was super cool. If you're a big football junkie, yeah, I recommend you check that out. But Will Howard was considered the 8th ranked quarterback on the rankings of the Beast, and he was considered to go in the 4th round. DJ Giddens, we're going to dive into these real quick. If you want to check out more, go ahead. Just want to give you a little bit of brief knowledge here as we're getting closer to the NFL draft. DJ Giddens, 13th running back on the board. Absolute travesty. I can't believe this. I think when it's all said and done, by the way, this is probably what makes me the most mad. Giddens going to be the one that makes people regret that they didn't draft him. 13th running back on the board, according to the Beast. Insane. Like the fact that he's not at least 5th is just wild to me, but still assumes that he's going to get drafted in the 3rd or 4th round in the draft this season. There was also 3 wide receivers for Kansas State on this one. Dante Cephas, who had as the 142nd wide receiver, Jaden Jackson, 208, and Ty Bowman, 237. Like they were pretty deep, and they all were considered to be undrafted free agents. I don't expect them to be drafted, but still pretty cool that this guy did the knowledge and did the details, the diving of these players. Easton Kitley, the 23rd guard on the list, also considered going to be an undrafted free agent, but 23rd guard on the list might actually get you a invite to training camp. We'll see if that actually happens for Kitley. Brennan Mott, we just talked about him pretty deep in this episode with 11 sacks this past season. Didn't get a lot of love from the Beast here. Was considered the 70th ranked edge player in the draft heading into Green Bay in just a few weeks, and considered an undrafted free agent as well. I think we're going to see him get signed to a team, whether it's late in the rounds in the draft. I think somebody might fall in love with him, or he gets signed as an undrafted free agent. But I do think we are going to see Mott get an opportunity at making an NFL team this season. Austin Moore, 130th linebacker, also considered an undrafted free agent. And then we have 2 more undrafted free agents before we get to the other 2. Let's get to those real quick. Keenan Garber was seen as a 71st cornerback, and Jordan Riley, the 107th safety, both considered undrafted free agents. Jacob Parrish, check this out. I think he's had probably the biggest jump up ever since the combine. Had an amazing combine, ran super fast. Now considered the 9th best cornerback on the board, according to the NFL draft. Still think it's a little low personally, but they think he's going to get drafted somewhere in the 2nd or 3rd round. So that's Friday night. That's a primetime pick. So probably, I'm guessing that Parrish will be the first Kansas State player drafted in the draft this in the next couple weeks. And then finally, Marcus Siegel, the 13th ranked safety on the board, and considered a 5th round pick in this one. So when it's all said and done, according to the Beast, if you want to count Will Howard in this one, 4 Kansas State Wildcats are predicted to get drafted on April 24th through the 26th to find their spots on new teams. I think that we'll get at least probably 6 or 7 with opportunities to make teams when it's all said and done, including those 4. But overall, pretty exciting. And it's going to be a really exciting thing. We'll have more coverage when we get closer, when they get drafted. We'll dive into that on this show as well, where I like their fits. Maybe we'll try and get some of the NFL Locked On hosts as well to get some deep dives about where they fit, so you can get more of a, find a way to cheer for them on Sundays as well, heading forward. I appreciate you once again, as always, for making Locked On Kansas State your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez as your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Please like the video. Please subscribe. And this has been Locked On Kansas State.